What up, boys? How we doing this week?
What's up? What's up?
What up, Big Daddy?
Hey, what's going on, man?
It's a special day here on the podcast.
I'm back, so I guess that's a good
Maine
thing.
and Mike's back. Yeah.
I'm back from Maine.
Maine and Mike.
How was it?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Good.
Spend time with family.
Uh-oh.
Happy birthday.
Oh, the special happy birthday edition.
To JD Real.
J Real's birthday right here on the podcast.
Man, I'll tell you what, you get to a certain age, it just doesn't feel good anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Stop counting after 4-0.
Happy birthday, Johnny.
Thank you very much, man. I still feel young inside. I just look like shit on the outside. That's all right.
But hey, man, it's all up to you to stay accountable.
Hey, it's kind of like them dry aged steaks. They look like shit until you cut into them.
Well, not everybody can make shit look good, Johnny, you know?
Pour enough gravy on it, you all right?
Yeah, that's all you got to do. Soakums. They call that soakums. Soakums.
Marinate.
But
Merc.
I digress. I want to kind of jump straight into the topic this week.
Let's do
it. I want to make sure that we grab a hold of our listeners. I want to talk about something that's really been eating at me a lot. I know that we've talked about it kind of here and there on the podcast a little bit, and we've kind of danced around a little bit. But this week's edition, we want to talk about what it is to grow up.
Yep.
Some of us are still doing that, Johnny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Still working on it.
That old saying, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Truth.
Growing up is hard to do, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, it is.
Is that a country song?
And the reality of it is it's not about, we get this mentality that being grown up means, well, you got a full-time job and you're living on your own and you're paying your own bills and you're a grown-ass man, That don't mean you're grown up.
Those are just byproducts of being grown up.
Yeah, because being grown is something that comes from the inside.
Right.
All those other things are just an outward reflection of what you're trying to do. And if you have selfish ambitions and you're all about yourself, it don't matter how much money you make.
Yeah.
Right.
Truth.
Well, what you do is going to reflect that.
Right.
Yeah, I deserve this because I made the money. No, you don't. You don't deserve shit.
Well, if it's all about you, it's selfishness, and selfishness is we've talked about that as a sign of immaturity. That's not masculinity. Masculinity is grounded in selflessness.
And once you become a dad, you should be selfless.
Or a husband or a man.
Exactly, yeah. Good point.
And nowadays, since we've done the research and it shows that less and less people are getting married, but they're, cohabitating or whatever, even at that point, once you bring, a spouse into the situation, it's time for you to check yourself, man. It's time to grow up and not play house. So a lot of people want to play house.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
That's not growing up.
Well, the other thing too is you've got to bring something to the table before you have expectations of somebody else.
Right.
Like if you're bringing nothing, like don't show up to the barbecue empty-handed and bitch because you don't like the hamburgers that are cooked.
Yeah. Or what's the drink?
Where's the ketchup? I was watching a meme the other day, this video. They was having this barbecue and a guy was bitching about the buns and his mama said, you come here empty-handed with nothing, you bitching about the buns. Don't you dare talk about these buns.
I didn't bring ketchup.
It's funny. You use that analogy of something like just the simplicity of showing up to a party or a get-together or a barbecue empty-handed and bitching about what's there.
Right.
It's the same thing in relationships. You you can't show up with nothing and expect everything.
Exactly.
But when you show up with everything, you should have expectations.
It's the American way.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to clarify, because we were talking about this earlier before we started the podcast, is, so I think a lot of times it's really easy to tell men what we should be doing and how we should be doing this and how we should be selfless and on all these things. And those things are all true.
Yeah.
But we should have expectations of our spouses, of our children, of the people we interact with. Friends, for instance, you should have expectations of your friends.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, you should expect truth.
Yes. Right. Yep.
If you're hanging out with dudes and, they're a bunch of ding-dongs that are just going to tell you whatever you want, they're about as immature and about as, stupid as you are, then that's a problem.
Useless as tits on a boar hog.
Well, think about it.
No, serious, bobbleheads.
You see dudes that'll hang around with guys that are ding-dongs to make themselves feel better about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Still not that like that.
Or they don't want other guys to push back and to challenge them or to say things. And that's a sign of immaturity. And you got to grow up. If you want to know if you're a grown-ass man, look at the men you hang out with.
Yeah.
If your buddies or the people that you surround yourself with are all selfish and they're immature and they're all about doing what feels good to them and they don't care about who they hurt or who they impact, that's a good reflection of who you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And look at the choices you make. Look at what you choose to purchase. Look what you choose to surround yourself with. You could be, living all by yourself, but you've got every toy, every Xbox, every boat, every whatever it is that you choose to surround yourself with. But what do you have? You've got nothing. You're still a kid.
Yeah.
You're still just playing games. You're still just acting out
Or you're a boy with a beard.
a boy with a beard. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this on the way home today. Success. You know, there's a lot of podcasters out there that are talking about, you know, being successful, being a G, having money, and all these different things, and cars and possessions and hot girls and all all these different measurables we want to use as being a man. But let me tell you something. I don't care how many successful pursuits you have in business, how many trips you go on, how much money you make. If you don't have people to share it with, it's all for naught. It's
Right.
meaningless.
Yep.
When I think about all the things that I want to do in my life or the things that I want to experience, you know what's tied to every single one of those things?
Your spouse.
People.
Yep. Your spouse.
You know, there's
Your
people.
kids.
You know, it's like my son and I are getting ready to go on a little bit of a trip to go watch a game. We're going to go to Gillette Stadium and watch the Pats, right?
Nice.
And, you know, the game is just a byproduct of what the real purpose of it's sharing that moment with my son.
Exactly.
That's what's important.
That's success.
You know,
Yep.
the game, yeah, that's the successful part. The getting the tickets to the game and getting there and spending the money and go, oh, well, I can afford to do this, or that don't mean shit.
Right.
You know, it's like if a tree falls in the woods, they say nobody's there to hear it. Did it really fall?
Right. Doesn't make a sound.
My question is, does it really matter?
Right.
Because if somebody's not there to hear it or to experience it or to see it, who cares?
Yep.
And we got to look at that from the mentality of a man. Like, you know, we got to grow up with a mindset of thinking, okay, are the things that I'm doing, are they impactful? Do they have meaning? Do they have purpose?
Yeah.
Because if it's all about me, who gives a shit? And
Yeah.
we already talked about that in one of our other podcasts. You know, it's like if I go to Egypt, for instance, my dream's always to see the pyramids, and I go by myself.
Okay. Yeah.
Got pictures, John.
Yeah,
That's
I
all
can
you
go
got.
there and I can touch them and I can see them and I can take pictures, but I'm not sharing it with anybody.
Yeah.
Well, that's where people get mixed up, especially with social media. They think, oh, I've got thousands and thousands of followers, so I'll take these pictures and I'm sharing it with everybody, so everybody's experiencing it. No, you're a lonely bastard out there with a camera
Yeah.
taking pictures and sharing it to people that you think give a shit about you, and they don't.
Yeah.
True.
You know?
I mean, one of my dream places, I've have a few dream places that I like to do, like places I want to go in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And there's certain people I'd want to share it with. Like, I want to go to Ireland. I would definitely want to go with my wife and my children,
Yep.
or my family members. You know, I want to go to the Holy Land. I would
Yep.
like to go with my brothers
Yeah.
to go to Jerusalem and to walk the streets where
Experience
Christ
it. Yeah.
experience. But I want to. The place is just part of it. It's the
Right.
people that bring the meaning and the
Correct.
value to it.
Right.
And when we lose sight of that because we're so selfish and so self-consumed, we're just boys
Yeah.
pretending to be men. And at the end of the day, we're coming up empty. And I think that's really what's happening in our culture today with these young dudes, is they're trying to fill this bucket with shit. And there's a hole in the bottom of it, and it just keeps falling through the bottom because there's no substance there.
Nope.
Well,
And-
I had 100 thumbs up on that, John. That was a great trip. I enjoyed my thumbs ups.
Yeah.
Got a lot of likes, huh?
I got
But-
a lot of hearts too. It's
But
good.
one of the big problems is people are out there listening to what other people are telling them is success.
Yeah.
Me, success, sitting out underneath the pole barn with my wife, hanging out, talking.
On your property, living your life with your family.
Yeah, I couldn't ask for anything more. Sure, there's other things I'd love to do, but I've succeeded.
Yeah.
But it takes accountability to get there. It takes responsibility. You got to grow up. You can't just you can't sit out there on your parents' porch or your parents' pole barn, and you know what I mean, all by yourself. You've got to make the right decisions. You've got to make grown-up decisions.
Yeah, it's meaningless. When you're alone, it's meaningless. And when you're a boy and you're selfish and you're not grown up and you're not a man, you end up alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a lot of dudes that are listening to this podcast, and you're so self-consumed, you're so into you, and you're so worried about what you're going to get and what's going to happen, or how you're viewed, or what people are going to say or think about you, that you're losing sight of the big picture because you're not growing up.
Right.
You're staying a kid and a boy, and you're so worried about impressing other people. And we had a full-blown podcast about this a couple weeks back called "Who Gives a Shit?"
Right.
Because nobody cares.
Yep.
What matters in life is the people that are in your life. Every aspect of what we do doesn't mean. Think about it. You can move from place to place to place. And I've done a few moving. I've moved from Massachusetts. I went to Kentucky, from Kentucky to Texas, from Texas to Oklahoma, from Oklahoma to Pensacola to Pensacola to Orlando, right? And the one thing that I've learned in all the places I moved to is people are pretty much the same everywhere you go.
Yep.
People go to work, they provide for their families, they go out to eat, or they go on vacation. I mean,
yep.
The difference is the people, though, the relationships that you develop, and the things that you pick up along the way. And when you're immature and you don't take hold of that or appreciate that, you're missing out.
Yeah, you're missing the big picture.
And as we said earlier, you really got to grow up and quit thinking about just yourself. And one of the words that we were talking about, Ray, and you can probably elaborate on this a little bit, is accountability. We talked about being accountable, and when you are immature, you don't have any kind of an accountability to not only yourself, but to anybody else.
Well, another one of the big things is that, if you wonder why, am I accountable? I'm accountable for this. I'm accountable for that. If you are blaming other people for things that have happened in your life, you are not being accountable, period. It's all on you. It's the choices you make. And you're not going to make the right choice every time. That's all right.
Got to learn from them.
That's it. You got to learn from them, because if you ain't learning from them, you're not growing up.
Well, immature people point fingers at other people.
Right. Take responsibility for my own actions or blame somebody else. Ding, 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 blame somebody else.
Yeah, it's easier.
It is.
I'll take what's behind door number 2.
Yeah, but that's the immaturity. That's not
Blame
being
somebody.
grown up. When you can lose $5,000 on something and go, damn, that's my fault. I did that. Mm-hmm. That's growing up. Even though somebody
else,
else,
focus on the problem, or you got to focus on the solution.
the resolution, yeah. And he gave me the tip, and he gave me a bad tip, or he sent me in the wrong direction, and he did this and he did that, and she told me this and she told me that. That's immature. Mm-hmm. It's, hey, I made the decision to listen to what they had to offer me. I invested it. It bellied up. That's my bad.
Well, here's one too for those guys that are listening to married right now. When you put everything on your spouse so that you don't have to take blame for anything, you need to grow up.
Yeah.
It's real easy to say, well, she made the decision. I asked her. She said we should do this, or I took a back seat because I didn't want her to be mad or whatever. No, that's a cowardice. That's a punk way out.
Yeah.
And that's the immature way out of things. And you really need to grow up.
Supposed to be the head.
You just said something big there, and a lot of people are like, well, I asked her and I told her and I did this. Not just that, but when you force your spouse to make that decision, when you intentionally avoid the situation so that your spouse is forced to make the decision, so that you don't have to. So if it bellies up, you can say that was your fault. Mm-hmm. But the true fault is that you didn't have the balls to step in and take care of the situation. You weren't grown up enough.
You don't want to be accountable for it.
Yeah.
You're just looking for somebody else. It's the blame game. And we've had a podcast on that before too. It's just, you want to find other people to blame.
Yeah.
And that's all signs of needing to grow up.
Yep.
And, we get caught up in this mentality of, oh, they're living in the basement. They're playing video games. They're doing this and that. Forget about all that bullshit.
Yeah.
It's about the inside of a person. It's about the way that a man thinks, the way that he walks, the way that he moves, the way that he interacts with other people. Mm-hmm. If you're a selfish person, you're a boy. You are not a man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because selfishness is a sign of immaturity. Selflessness is a sign of maturity. It means you understand that there's something more important than you. Mm-hmm. That you're accountable and you're responsible for something greater than yourself.
Right.
And that's in every aspect of our lives. We could talk about being husbands and fathers, but at the end of the day, I mean, you got brothers you're hanging out with. You know what? You better have the balls to tell your brothers the truth and stand firm in what you know to be true and walk in that and not back down and not cower down and not, tell them what they want to hear because you're afraid to hurt their feelings.
Yep.
Here's another thing to look at. So if you're not married, if you're not dating, if you're in that early 20-something and still living at home and you're only thinking about, well, I'm not going to go to work and it's not going to affect anybody. It's not going to do. No, that's completely selfish. That is not growing up.
Yeah.
Every time you make a decision, I tell this to my kids, and my kids are only 19 and 15. Every decision you make affects your mother. It affects myself. it doesn't just affect you. And if you're only thinking about how it affects you, you need to grow up.
Yep.
Period.
Well, the sad thing is, Ray, is that I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she's got people that work with her. My daughter's 20. And she's got people that work with her that are in their 40s, that live at home with their parents, that don't want to come to work, and they don't even get paid because they don't have the sick time. But they don't have to worry about it because they're still living with their parents.
Mommy and daddy will take care of the internet.
I mean, grow up.
No.
If your parents are paying for your internet and you're 30 plus years old, you should probably look at yourself and say, what the hell am I doing to myself? So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'll give you a great example. When I was back home in Maine, my brother's there, and I got two brothers. One who was unemployed, one who just recently got a job after being out of the workforce for a little bit. That was his choice. But my other brother, my younger brother, is the one who, my dad's getting frustrated with him. He's like, dude, you got to get a job. Like, if you don't get a job, I can't help you anymore. Like, you are here, you're just taking up space, and literally taking up space. And, he gets angry. Like, it's crazy to see how angry someone can get because they feel like they are a failure. And that's what sucks. But, and I had a great talk with my brother, and I said, sit down. And I said, dude, whatever you do, it's on, like, you need to grow up. Like, this, you're done with the days of going to play video games all day. Like, you should be at your job. And, did it work? I don't know.
Well, at the end of the day, let's think about it. It's really easy to get caught up in, the pity party, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
100%.
I just feel like I'm a failure. Oh, I just can't get my shit together. Oh, It's just so hard. And oh, this and oh, that. Well, you know what? Do something about it.
Yeah.
Get up off your ass and do something.
Yep.
There's an old saying. It says, God made the ocean, but man had to make the boat.
Yep.
God made the current, but man had to make the oar. God made the wind, but man had to make the sail. Don't sit on your ass and expect God to move you from one place to the next. You got to do your part. You got to build the boat. And there's so many people out there that are just sitting there expecting somebody to come along and just magically change their life.
Yeah. Right.
And that is the biggest sign of immaturity and the biggest sign that you need to grow up. If you want something bad enough, you have to go after it and get it. And you got to understand that there's a cost in everything, right? It's going to cost you something.
Yep.
If what you're pursuing doesn't cost you anything, it's not worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Yep.
It's like my son. He works, and been hearing a lot lately from him about how he's tired. I sent him a meme the other day that a guy went off about being tired. You better get used to be tired. Being tired is part of it. You want to pursue a better life and success. You're gonna be tired. That's part of the game. Just get used to it, right?
Oh yeah.
And I sent it to him because I want him to understand that that's part of being a man. You're gonna be tired.
Yeah.
You're going to come home, and right now you're 23, but I was 23 years old when I married his mother.
Yep.
And I was 25 years old when he came to this world.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah, I was tired, but I had to be a husband. I had to be a father. I had to be a friend. I had to be a coworker. You just can't stop life because you're tired. You got to keep pushing.
They say if it's easy, it's not amazing.
Yep.
If it's amazing, it's not easy.
Yeah.
True. Just think about that. Anything that's easy is not amazing.
No.
It's all lackluster. It's all chill. You don't get anything out of it when it's just handed over to you.
No growth.
Where the biggest sign of immaturity comes in and needing to grow up is thinking that everybody's entitled to the same things.
Right.
And our culture has done a really good job of selling these kids on, all you got to do is this and you're going to get this. And you're going to live in this house and you're going to make this amount of money and you're going to have this kind of life. And if, you're going to live the Hallmark life, you're going to have all this money, you're going to be eating out every day and wearing Gucci and doing all this other shit. And these kids, when that doesn't happen for them, they feel like a failure because they have this unrealistic expectation of what success in life is because they're immature. They're still they're thinking like kids and not like adults.
Yep.
Because we know as fathers, for instance, how many times have we had to sacrifice what we want to give to our children or to our spouse?
All the time.
I could walk around and wear certain clothes, and I could have a certain car with a salary that I make, and I could have certain toys in my yard if I want. But at the end of the day, what's it gonna cost me? That means my kids don't wear certain clothes, my kids don't have certain things, my wife doesn't have a certain lifestyle. I mean, everything comes with a cost.
Yep.
And if I'm fixated on me and not fixated on them, I have no business being a husband or a father.
Well, there's going to be no joy in those things anyways. You know, if you acquire all that stuff and you ain't got the time to go out on it with your wife because she's working, you know, she's working 2 jobs to help maintain everything, there's no joy in that.
Well, I was thinking about this yesterday because it was, with my birthday and everything, and the family took me out, and they got me some nice gifts and everything, and that thing's nice because they're thinking about you and they're going out and trying to find the things that they know that you like, and that's meaningful. But my daughter made me this card, and it's actually a picture of me with a cake that she made me one time for my birthday when she was a little girl.
That's awesome.
And so on the inside the card, she wrote some heartfelt things to me as her dad. And you can take all the other shit,
Right.
but don't touch my card.
Boy, isn't that the
Right.
truth?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've had a few of those in my lifetime.
Yeah, you can
That's
have
material.
You can have the material things.
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is, at this stage in my life, pretty much what I want, if I wanted, I could just buy it for myself.
Right.
Because first of all, you guys know I'm a pretty humble person, so I'm not about, all kinds of glamour and glitz and bling and all that other shit. So,
Yeah.
I'm a t-shirt and hat kind of guy. I like to be comfortable. So pretty much if I want a t-shirt, I can go buy one. If I want a pair of shorts, I can go buy. So, I mean, in the grand scope of things, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that my kids went out and picked stuff out for me, and they were thinking about what does their dad like. That's where the meaning and the value comes in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
The material things don't mean shit. I mean,
yeah. No, that's good, John, because I just recently had my birthday. Thanks for calling, by the way. So no, it's payback for last year when I completely forgot about his.
he forgets about that, but let's
Yeah.
move on.
No,
I digress.
Let's move on. But anyway,
And the rest of you guys over there sleeping in the boat, you know what I'm saying? Wake up.
so when I was in Maine, it was my birthday, and my mom brought the kids out to go shopping for me. And the kids asked, "What do you want?" I go, "Kids, honestly, just you guys to behave while you're out with your grandma. That's it. That's all I want." And then they said, "Okay." So they came back, and I asked, "How were they?" And said they were very well behaved. And they came back.
Your mother lies.
Each one, that's true. But each one of them had their own card, customized, like written. Like I got my 6-year-old son, I got my 10-year-old daughter, and my 11-year-old daughter writing cards, heartfelt cards of "Dad, love you," and it's just stuff that I put in my drawer and I will forever have it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones. Is like, but then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I really don't need anything. Like the fact like John said, you can go buy whatever you want. Like I could buy if I wanted it, but I don't want it. I think the thing that was really cool my mom got me was a mouse. Like as much as I use my computer for work and stuff like that, the fact that it's something that I can use for my job that actually makes my life easier. It's just, I was like, that was a great gift. It was one of those ones that's like, it's something as simple as that.
Well, because she's thinking about something you need.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's something I needed. And that was huge. So. And it was because my kids noticed that the mouse pad I brought was just all crappy, and because I don't care. Like I go from my dad's mentality of my dad never went and bought his own vehicle for himself. It was always for the kids. It was always for the family. He went and got a truck for himself, and like that was it. It was the first time I've ever seen him buy something for himself, and it was he's 60 years old when he did it. So it's like I learned a lot from my dad when it came to that piece. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it goes back to what we say. It's a selfless thing.
Yeah.
That's side of maturity.
Yeah.
Well,
Growing up.
I can tell you when it comes to birthdays and holidays and all that stuff, like you said, the gifts mean nothing. What I love to see is my kids behaving and making wise decisions, making good decisions, selfless decisions. And like you said, knowing that what you've been trying to instill in them is taking root and it is growing. So everything that you've given up to help them have a better life and to be a good person, to care for others, seeing that happen, that is to me the ultimate gift.
And it's rooted in selflessness.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you want it for them to make them good, productive human beings, right?
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about on the podcast here, is about being mature and not being caught up in yourself. And, the world that we live in, sadly as it is, tells you it's about you. Get yours when you can get it. Don't worry about anybody else. It's all about you. As long as you ain't hurting nobody, who cares? Get yours, And it's a very selfish mentality. And it's a very immature, childish mentality where we got a lot of boys with beards and they need to grow up. And, the other part of it too is, and this is for the ladies listening, quit enabling these boys.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many videos I watch where girls are all pissed off about these immature boys playing video games, and they're the ones that bought them the damn game systems. They're the ones that are buying them the games. It's like you're pissed because your boyfriend keeps playing video games and he's not getting a job or he's sitting on his ass or whatever it may be, and you're the one that's buying it for him. So
feeding the habit.
we got to quit enabling immaturity.
Yep.
Rewarding bad behavior.
Yeah, we got to quit. We got to quit feeling bad that little Johnny doesn't have this and little Johnny doesn't have that. Well, tough shit.
Yep.
I can tell you this little Johnny sitting right here went without a lot of shit when he was a kid. And you know what? Back then I didn't think it, but as an adult male now, I'm like, I was blessed for it because it taught me about
The
necessity and want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, the guys, you're listening to this podcast, man, there's a big difference between necessity and want. There's a lot of things we can want, but do you really need them? And if you're pushing your wants ahead of necessity, you're not a man. You're a boy.
Yeah.
And you need to grow up. If you're pushing your wants above the necessities of your wives and your children, or your brothers, or your friends, or your parents, or whoever it is that you have any kind of relationship with in your life, you're not a man, you are a boy, and you need to grow up. Because it's not all about you. And unfortunately, we live in a culture, and especially with young boys, and listen, ladies, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm going to get real with you. Quit enabling these little boys. You single moms out there that are raising these boys, quit making excuses and babying their asses. Because you're raising them to be spoiled boys and not mature, selfless men. And that's what the world needs. We're sitting here, we got a pandemic going on. I don't know if people realize this or not. We have got a shortage of men. And if you don't believe me, start asking 25 to 35-year-old women. They will tell you all day long. There's no good dudes out there. They're all, they're either selfish, they're immature, they're lazy, they're disconnected. They don't want to put forth any of the work. And it's because they've been babied their whole lives. And quite honestly, it's because of the lack of the father, right? And when I say the lack of the father, let me put another word in there that's so important and crucial that we don't talk about. It's the lack of a good father. A good father. A selfless father. A role model. A man that steps in the gap and teaches his young man, his son, his boy, what it is to be a man. And it's unfair to put it on these women to try to raise boys up to be men. And I would just put this challenge out there. If you know a young lady that's raising a boy by herself, step in and help out. And don't do it to try to pick up the woman. Because that's a selfish, boyish, immature act, and you need to grow up. Man, we got to figure this thing out. We really got to figure this thing out. Where have all the good men gone? I'm going to tell you, I'm not a perfect man. I make a lot of mistakes. I say a lot of stupid shit. I find myself doing things I don't want to do, and the things I should be doing, I'm not doing. And my mind goes to places it shouldn't. My mouth finds itself in places it shouldn't, saying things it shouldn't, and I find myself acting out things I shouldn't. I'm far from perfect. But I do know one thing. I know one thing for absolute. I do know what it is to be selfless. I do understand the power in being a selfless father and a selfless husband and a selfless friend. And we need men up there that are willing to step in the gap, to be real with other men. We got too many dudes that either don't care, don't want to get involved, or they just want to be bobbleheads and tell their buddies whatever they want to hear instead of stepping in and saying, bro, you need to get your shit together. You need to grow up. That's what real love looks like. I can tell you with 100% confidence that the men in this room, we got no problem doing that. We have different tactics in how we do it, different ways, and I'm probably not the best at it. I can tell you right now. But you know what? It all comes from one place, and that's from the heart. And that's what we need. We need men that are going to step in the gap, that are going to come from the heart, that are going to be selfless and going to be real. Ladies, we need your help. If you listen to this podcast and you're a young woman or you're a lady out there, we need your help. If you're a single mom, we need your help just like you need ours. Your sons need to be treated like young men and not little boys. Because that's the future of our country. That's the future of our nation. That's the future of our existence. And if we don't get our shit together, we're in for a rude awakening. It's time to step up, get up, and grow up. Because when you do that, my friends, well, hell, that's where the rubber meets the road.